Oh, Timmy. Oh, Timmy. I don't know why everyone's so mean to little Timmy. I mean, he's like a little kid. You know, he's got his hat on all the time. He's got mittens that are tied to his winter coat so he doesn't lose them. Why are all these people so obsessed with little Timmy Pool? Well, I think it's mostly because there are people that really only consume media from like one particular side of the aisle. If you just Google Tim Pool's name, here's the type of articles you get. Okay. And this is, by the way, promoted by Google, you know, their news feed, right? Tim Pool sucks, and a new deep dive proves it unequivocally. Daily Beast, this far-right YouTuber is the latest horsey-paced poster boy. Tim Pool gets the coof after railing against mandates. Okay. Tim Pool caught the coof and Joe Rogan offered to pay his medical bills. How coward and phony Tim Pool became one of the biggest political YouTubers on the planet. Right-wing podcaster, right? Now, every one of these headlines is disparaging in one way or another, whether it's falsely labeling him as right-wing or it's literally calling him names because that's where the media is at now. You know, coward and phony, saying he sucks. You know, there's a lot in life that you can just not watch. You know, basically saying, well, he got the coof after he railed against mandates, as if those two things are, you know, it's like, ha, 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 ha. Well, I mean, I don't have any issue with people getting the poke. I don't speak out against it. But I do speak out against mandates. And I think that that's something that, you know, crosses both political aisles. That isn't a uniquely right-wing opinion. I don't even consider myself right-wing. I'm very liberal on many issues. But this is what the media does. They want to compartmentalize everybody they see as a potential adversary. And the reality is, you know, YouTube, in terms of news, is way bigger than a lot of these mediocre news outlets. I would be willing to bet, if we looked at traffic numbers, Tim Pool or even me get more daily impressions than the Daily Beast does, or that Input gets, or that The Independent gets, right? If you're going to cover, for example, Tim getting swatted, what about that has anything to do with his perceived or actual political leanings? Literally nothing. And there's nobody out there really pushing back against this and from a print media, a legacy media perspective. There's a lot of people here on YouTube who would, but we had a very excellent back and forth yesterday, or I'm not sure exactly which day this clip aired, but it, you know, kind of hit the internet this morning, of a guest on Joe Rogan's podcast who called Tim alt-right. And I believe it's somebody who works for ABC News, right? If you look at it, where is this? Josh called Howard Springs. Okay, well, let me tell you where we're at here. Okay, here's the clip. All right. This is, well, I think it's relevant to say who this person actually is. His name is Josh something or other, and he works for ABC News. I assume I'm pre-blocked? No, I'm not. So he's ABC broadcaster, completely irrelevant. How this guy got on Joe... Listen, Joe, okay? Joe, Mr. Rogan. You had this dude on your show. He's got 25,000 Twitter followers, and from what I can tell, irrelevant. Okay, this is the latest episode, all right? Even, I mean, most of his tweets get 15 interactions. 15 likes is what he got on this. 7 likes. Joe, Mr. Rogan, bring me on, buddy. The quartering for Rogan. I would love to come down there and discuss all sorts of things with you. There are things we don't agree on necessarily, too. We could talk about the culture battle. We could talk about media. Certainly better than this guy. Here he posts an AMA, ask me anything. You know how many replies he got? 1. one person on the entirety of the internet cared enough to ask a question. Okay? So let's just, I want to put it where, this guy is. Now, here's the clip.
For me, I mean, my concern is what I've been agitating for, and what's made it a lot harder is...
By the way, obviously an Aussie, there's a lot of Aussies that really folded. Really just got on their knees and said, govern me harder, daddy. The camps, like our literal coof camps where people get yard time like they're in prison, that's okay, right? I don't know what it is. All the Australian people I know aren't a fan of this. But if you think the United States is bad, look at New Zealand, look at Australia, look at Canada. These people have like immediate, I don't want to say all. Nope, definitely not my viewers. But it's like they get one case and they shut down a whole province or whatever, state or whatever they call it. 1 or 2 cases. And then you have people like Claire Lehman. You could see Elijah saying, also Claire Lehman disseminated regime propaganda, sharing pictures of an Olympic team in the camps to show they are essentially vacation spots. She's a traitor to human rights and blocks anyone who calls her out on it. She's a bad human being, and this guy defends her. Now, again, I understand probably as an Aussie, getting all this is what you should do from Americans or anyone else that doesn't live there, is grating. It's the same reason I couldn't care less about what like Piers Morgan or John Oliver or Trevor Noah have to say about this country. Don't care. Some of them have lived here for just a few years. I don't know if any of them are actual citizens. Maybe John Oliver is. But I don't really care what some Brit has to say about my country. So I 100% understand being defensive there, okay? But this dude goes on just to badmouth Tim, and Joe Rogan absolutely shuts him down.
Is the conversation here in the States from people like Tim Pool and people like that who it's sort of like, like if you had a buddy who you thought was a bit too strict with their kid or something, or like, you just sort of wanted to change his behavior in a certain way, and you were like, I think I can do this. I think I know how to talk to this person. I think the best solution is a collaboration with them. And then another buddy of yours goes, no, you have to say that your buddy is a child abuser, and until you admit that he's a child abuser, I'm not even going to have a conversation about this because your buddy is a child abuser. Let's insist. You'd be like, hang on.
What comparison is this?
So what you see is Rogan immediately is like, what are you talking about? Where are you even going here? This like a comparison that is just meant to disparage Tim Pool and not actually make any realistic comparison.
This is what it feels like when Americans come and try to save the conversation that Australians are having with each other about these policies. So like it's become a lot harder for people like me to go, let's look at the human rights trade-offs, let's look at the health trade-offs.
There really shouldn't be any human rights trade-offs, by the way.
Let's try to assess what's reasonable and what's not reasonable when you've got all this chatter coming from some of these alt-right people.
Alt-right people. Again, you could tell that this dude only reads articles from like 2 or 3 outlets, right? Because anybody that actually listens to Tim, the most common thing anybody who watches Tim Pool will say about him is that he's a fence sitter, right? People get mad. People who are really fiercely anti-poke will get mad that he's always disclaiming his stuff, saying that, he's not a doctor and you should talk to your doctor. Publicly and privately, I have never in my life heard Tim Pool espouse anything remotely to alt-right, anything remotely alt-right. And I know people in the alt-right. Tim's never advocated for an ethno-state. He's never said anything about other people's races. He's never done anything like that. They just say alt-right to smear him because he's inconvenient, because he's a threat to them.
Who are saying, like, literally,
well,
Jamie,
Tim Pool's not alt-right.
Oh. And this is the mistake he made. He probably never did the research to see that Joe actually knows Tim.
Well, not, and Majid is not alt-right either.
No,
neither one of those guys are alt-right.
No, I'm not.
So he immediately says, no, they're not alt-right. But bro, you just said they were. Have the strength of your convictions if you're going to call somebody something like that. And then you immediately, like, do you think Joe Rogan respects this guy for being such a slimeball and immediately backing off?
Fair assessment.
I'm not saying Majid.
You're using that pejorative to dismiss what they're saying.
Well,
like they
Tim
might get
isn't
really into these conspiracies, and you look at it on paper without the whole breadth of knowledge from the community, and you find out that these people are being relocated, and you do see those, whatever you want to call them, camps, communities where the people have to stay on their porch. It's concerning to someone who lives in America. You would understand how you would think of Australia as being this wild, free place.
Yeah, totally.
And then you see that and you go, oh my God, they're reverting back to the way they were.
What the difference is that there are some people, and I sort of give Margaret a pass on this because I know him well enough to sort of think that he must just be sort of, not doing enough fact checking. But there are some other people like Tim who I feel like I and people like Claire Lehman at Quillette, who's the editor of Quillette, have done a lot of work, like pointing out the facts, and then it doesn't go anywhere. It's like unless you call them concentration camps and accept that Australia is on a path to become a fascist authoritarian dictatorship, there's nothing to even talk about.
Well, I don't think he's having conversations with anybody who's actually in Australia, unfortunately.
Well, I've invited him on my podcast and he doesn't come on.
I'm sure Tim doesn't go on your podcast because literally nobody listens to it. Now, I understand how frustrating it can be when you have quote-unquote outsiders telling you what's good for your country. I get it. But I actually do talk to Australians, and they actually do privately use this type of language. There's very few people, like Claire Lehman. I sat on the stage with Claire Lehman at a MythCon event to talk about free speech and the culture battle, I think, if I remember right. It was me, Tim, Claire Lehman, and I feel like there was one more. This woman has gone completely on her knees for her government now. It's insane how far she's fallen. But I get it. Like, when you're living in this mess, it's hard to see the forest from the trees. But this dude is just purposely disparaging Tim Pool. What he's really saying is, Tim Pool's voice is louder than mine. It travels farther than mine, and it's frustrating because more people listen to him than listen to me. So I'm just going to call him alt-right because I'm totally not butthurt about it. Good on Joe for sticking up for him. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.